We had chosen this place for its quiet. An old farmhouse tucked against the Appalachian woods, miles from the nearest neighbor. To my wife, it was heritage. Her grandparents had lived here. To me, it was stubbornness. A house pressed against the forest like a nail hammered too deep. Most mornings were uneventful. Coffee steaming, children bickering, the fog rising in lazy ribbons above the yard. But one morning broke the pattern. "Dad," my son whispered, spoon suspended in midair. "There's someone in the trees." I almost laughed it off. Just fog, I thought. Then my wife's spoon clattered into her bowl. She was staring too. At the edge of the yard, where mist licked the line of pines, there was a shape. Upright, human. He didn't move, didn't wave, didn't even seem alive. Just a figure rooted at the border of the woods, as though the forest had given him form and then forgotten him. We watched until the coffee cooled. When I blinked, he was gone. The next day he returned. I saw him first this time, framed between two pines. The fog was thinner, the shape sharper. A man, not tall, not short. Clothes indiscernible, too far for detail. But his head tilted toward the house, toward us. "Is he closer?" my wife whispered. "I don't think so." I didn't sound convinced, even to myself. He vanished by mid-morning. The day passed without incident, but a shadow seemed to cling to the house. Even the children grew quiet. That night, I dreamed of him. Standing at the glass doors, forehead pressed against the pane, breathing slow as a clock. For 2 more days, he lingered at the tree line, never advancing, never receding. The children began asking questions we couldn't answer. Why doesn't he move? What's he waiting for? We avoided the windows. Dinner was eaten in silence, curtains drawn. On the 5th morning, the silence shattered. "He's at the fence," my daughter whispered, pale as paper. And she was right. The figure no longer clung to the woods. He stood at the rusted fence that divided the yard from the forest, one hand resting lightly on the wire as though testing it. My wife gasped. "He's not supposed to come closer." I couldn't speak. My throat had gone dry. That night, I barely slept. Every creak of the house sounded like a footstep. In the morning, he was there again. This time leaning against the gate, head tilted, body still as a scarecrow. The children stayed upstairs, refusing breakfast. My wife paced the kitchen, muttering, "He knows we're here. He wants us to see him by evening." Tension broke. "This isn't just some drifter," she said. "This is wrong." "We need help," I hesitated, then nodded. I dialed the sheriff's office, pressing the phone tight against my ear. "There's a man," I said, "standing at our fence. He's been here for days." The deputy's voice was flat. "We'll send a car when we can." "Probably just a hunter." Don't worry, but I did worry. Because even as I spoke, the figure remained at the gate, motionless, as if he could hear every word. The deputy arrived after nightfall. His cruiser rumbled slowly up the graveled drive, headlights cutting weak lines through the fog. He walked the fence line with a flashlight, boots sinking into the wet grass. Of course, nothing. No figure, no footprints, no broken branches. The yard looked too normal, like it was playing a trick. "Probably a hunter, maybe some vagrant passing through," he said, avoiding my eyes. "We'll keep a car here tonight, just in case." And they did. The cruiser idled at the end of the drive, its red and blue lights strobing faintly against the mist. My wife and I stayed awake, listening to the dog growl softly at the door while the hours dragged on. But the figure never appeared, not once. By morning, the deputy knocked, his voice carrying that practiced patience of someone already done with you. "Look, we can't sit out here forever. If you see him again, get a picture. Something we can actually use. Without proof, there's nothing more we can do." We stood on the porch and watched the cruiser drive away, its taillights bleeding into the fog until they disappeared. And when I turned back, my stomach dropped. He was there again, at the fence. One hand resting on the gate, head tilted, still as stone. My wife's voice cracked. "They'll never see him. He won't let them desperation claw at me." I lifted my phone, zoomed in through the glass doors, and snapped picture after picture. On the screen, trees. Only trees. I dug out our old camcorder, one that didn't rely on apps or signals. Through the lens, the yard stretched wide and empty. But when I lowered it, he was there. Closer, always closer. I slammed the door and locked it twice. The children crouched on the stairs, pale and shaking. My daughter whispered, her voice raw, "Daddy, if he's real, why won't the camera show him?" I had no answer. That evening, with fog pressed against the windows like damp hands, my wife confronted me in the kitchen. "We're leaving," she said, her voice sharp, final. "Tonight, we'll go to my parents. I don't care about the weather or the roads. We can't stay here another night." Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, her hands trembling as she shoved clothes into bags. "You think the kids can handle a drive like this in a storm?" I asked. She slammed a drawer shut, the sound cracking through the silence. Better a storm than him. And in that moment, I couldn't argue. By midnight, the children were bundled in blankets in the back seat. The dog whined, scratching at the floorboards, restless and uneasy. Rain hammered the windshield, drowning the world in white noise. The wipers screeched uselessly, barely keeping pace. Wind tore at the trees, bending branches low until they scraped the roof of the car. Then the headlight struck it. A tree, massive, freshly torn from the earth, sprawled across both lanes like some carcass left to rot. Roots twisted in the mud, dripping rainwater. "Drive around it," my wife demanded, panic cutting through her voice. "There's no room," I said, gripping the wheel until my knuckles burned. "It's ditch on both sides. We'll roll if I try." The kids cried in the back, their sobs lost in the howl of the storm. We sat there, suspended in the violence of rain and thunder, until my wife whispered into the dark, almost to herself. He knew we'd try. At last, I turned the car around. The storm seemed to follow us, slamming at the windows, tearing at the trees. By the time we reached the drive, the dog was howling, her voice ragged with fear. I killed the engine. No one moved. We carried the children back inside, their faces pressed against our shoulders, their small hands clutching at our clothes. My wife stood by the window, trembling, her breath fogging the glass. "He's still there," she said. And I didn't need to look. I already knew. The storm passed by dawn, leaving the house wrapped in silence. Branches littered the yard, the swing set groaned in the wind, and the air smelled of wet earth. For the first time in days, he wasn't there. We ate in silence. The children pushed food around their plates without touching it. My wife stared at the empty fence line with hollow eyes. "I don't trust it," she said. Neither did I. By mid-morning, I decided to check the road again. Maybe we could clear the fallen tree or at least walk to the highway. Anything was better than waiting. We bundled the kids into the car, the dog whining at their feet. I turned the key, The engine coughed once, sputtered, and fell silent. I tried again. Nothing. My wife's hand gripped the dash, knuckles white. Try again. I twisted the key until my wrist ached. Silence. From the back seat came a small voice. "Daddy, we can't leave, can we?" I forced myself not to look at them. When I finally raised my eyes to the yard, he was there again, standing at the fence, waiting. We rushed back into the house. I grabbed my phone, then my wife's. No bars, dead air. "It'll come back," I muttered, though even I didn't believe it. "It always comes back." She shook her head slowly. "Not here. Not with him so close." The children sat huddled together in the kitchen. Even the dog refused to eat, growling low whenever her gaze drifted toward the windows. As dusk fell, the fog thickened, swallowing the yard whole. I tried not to look, but when I did, he was closer. No longer at the fence, now at the swing set, the rusted chains rattling in the damp wind just inches from his shoulder. My wife whispered, "He's moving in." One step at a time, we killed the lights. The house shrank into shadow. The children clung to their mother, eyes wide and glassy. I pressed my ear against the door. And then I heard it, breathing, slow, heavy, inches away. Midnight came, thick and airless. The dog whimpered once and went silent. Then footsteps, inside, slow, deliberate, measured, crossing the upstairs floorboards. My wife gripped my hand so hard my bones ached. The children buried their faces against her sides, whimpering softly. The footsteps descended the stairs, stopped outside the living room. The doorknob rattled once, twice, and then it began to turn. Days later, a crew of disaster workers drove up the road to clear storm debris. The fallen tree had been cut aside, the way passable again. They noticed the farmhouse, its front door ajar. Out of caution, they went inside to check if anyone needed help. No broken locks, no overturned furniture, no signs of struggle. But the house was empty. The family was gone. When investigators arrived, they found a camcorder in the living room, tape still inside. The final recording was grainy, marred by static, filmed sometime after midnight. A child's whisper, trembling close to the microphone. "He's inside." And then, silence. If this story unsettled you, leave a like and let the shadows know. Subscribe for more tales you shouldn't hear after dark. And if you've seen something you can't explain, tell us in the comments. We're always listening.